Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to crush, humiliate, and totally destroy your competition in your fantasy football draft. It's incredibly simple, so let me just break it down for you. Ultimate Draft Kit. The Ultimate Draft Kit for the fantasy footballers is hands down the best fantasy tool in existence. I mean, come on. It's got sleepers, it's got busts, injury updates, full projections. This thing's even got full dynasty rankings. Don't overthink this. It's the only wingman you'll need this year. Head over to ultimatedraftkit.com and grab your copy right away.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from pristineauction.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Mike is doing the Vance dance.
Woo-hoo! Let's go, Vance.
It's that time of year. Welcome back to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, Mike, the Fantasy Hitman Wright. It is Tuesday, March 12th. We are recording this the afternoon of March 11th, and every moment that goes by, another free agent signing to be is announced on Twitter. So we will cover as much as we can today. I'm just letting the people know. We only have so much information as of this moment in time.
Right. I would just one quick correction. Every moment that goes by is a moment that I feel like news should be breaking. Like I'm itching right now, and it's we have to wait at least, it feels like probably 15 minutes between each actual piece of news, and that's way too long for me.
And just to update everyone, as terribly as last year's offseason, the free agency, the draft, as terribly as that went for my dynasty team, so far we are on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate your well wishes. My team's
I feel like
my team's feeling better.
You're gloating about nothing.
But that's why dynasty is great.
I was going to say that. If you are not in a dynasty or keeper league and cannot enjoy the fact that the smallest bits of news can give you a reason to smile, like
no one is excited about Danny Amendola signing in Detroit. No one, except for me.
Yes,
I am ecstatic.
Because he's on your dynasty roster. Also, no one's excited about Jesse James going to Detroit,
except for me,
because you have Vance McDonald.
I'll be honest. This has been the I don't want to say this, but this has been such a good offseason for Vance McDonald. Are you kidding me? The vacated targets there and his need plus opportunity plus talent.
Yes.
I mean, Vance McDonald could totally legit be
welcome aboard.
Could be a top 5 tight end next year.
Always room at the Vance dance party. Always room.
I just got to get past Andy. He's the bouncer at the door. It's like, nope, full occupancy
you guys
in
understand,
there.
I mean, this is why this show is what it is. The reason I'm agonizing, the reason I have bitter beer face over here is because in the middle of last season, I traded Vance McDonald for C.J. Uzomah.
Hey, good news. C.J. Uzomah re-signed with the Bengals for 3 more years. Congrats.
I was pushing for a second straight title. Things haven't worked out in my favor, and I have Gronk about to retire any moment, I'm sure.
Yes.
All right, today's show, a big one. We're talking all about Antonio Brown. That's been the headline news. We haven't had a chance to weigh in. Antonio Brown signing with or traded to the Oakland, soon-to-be Las Vegas Raiders. And we're going to get into the weeds with that deal. This is the Overreaction episode. We're going to talk about players that we believe there's an overreaction happening one way or another. I polled the Foot Clan about 10 minutes ago. And, got a lot of the rookies, right? The DK Metcalf, Kyler Murray situation. But players that performed in a big-time way last year that I'm looking over here.
What just happened on the YouTube, Brooks?
I'm looking at Brooks.
He put on the film noir filter.
No, that was the nuclear Holocaust filter.
I'm clueless.
Does that happen on your end too, Brooks?
Yeah.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Uh-oh.
So we look over at the monitors, and suddenly the sun of like 1,000 suns shines in.
It's like the end of the movie. Oh, crap. Terrible reference.
It's like the end of the movie.
No, the solar movie. Yeah, reference sucking.
Oh, mercy. That's
Hold on. Go ahead and Google that one for us.
I'll
Mike.
figure it out because it's so good.
The solar movie.
No, the movie ends
No,
by
tell me
him
more.
opening up the shields in space and allowing the sun to cremate him.
Sounds like a doozy.
And the movie title is...
We're working on that.
Okay.
I'll be back.
Okay.
But the overreaction episode is not us.
Sunshine.
That's the name of the movie?
You couldn't remember?
I know. I couldn't remember the end, man.
But it's named Sunshine.
Which is the whole point. Like a lot of sunshine.
Hey,
All right.
we got there.
Moving on. I think I've never heard of that movie.
That's too bad. It's great.
Sounds real memorable, Mike.
It's great.
But the overreaction episode here, this is not us overreacting to the breaking news. This is us stopping
That would
people.
be a really crappy episode.
That would be unhelpful for your fantasy. This is players who we see either in data or whether we know from history that the fantasy community is going to overreact upon, good or bad, to their performances last year, and us saying, well, let's be a little bit wiser. Let's be smart with our fantasy picks.
All right. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers, at Andy Holloway, at JasonFFL, at FF Hitman, YouTube.com/The Fantasy Footballers, Instagram.com/Fantasy Footballers. Let's get into the quick question. It's a simple one. We'll talk all about Antonio Brown. He was traded. Which wide receivers are you taking first in redraft? Which one? Antonio Brown or JuJu Smith-Schuster? You guys weigh in.
Yeah, this is going to be a big hot topic of debate. And honestly, I think I'm still taking Antonio Brown first. As of right now, I get that JuJu is the new hotness. He succeeded in very extravagant fashion. When Antonio Brown was out, JuJu was great. But that's still a really small sample size. You're talking 3 games, 4 games. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know 3. Is it 3?
Yeah.
Matt Harmon, who does the reception perception, he has started charting these players for the Ultimate Draft Kit, and he made the comment, these guys might as well be playing 2 different positions, the coverage that they got last year. So in inferring that Antonio Brown is getting much stronger defense against him, like a lot of more double coverage, things like that.
A lot of more.
And he's
I'm
playing,
on fire today.
He's playing on the outside versus JuJu
So
played a lot of his snaps.
Can JuJu actually still dominate when he has to inherit all of that coverage for a full 16-game season?
I'm taking Antonio Brown. I'll reserve most of my comments for our overreaction portion because I will talk about JuJu. But, yes, Antonio Brown, the target volume. Look, this is the defending leader in touchdowns last season. Yes, he's a little bit older. Yes, there's been a lot of this, all the haze around the situation that kind of muddies the water and as far as maybe what you thought about him and used to think about him and what he was in fantasy. This was still in most scoring formats the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy football last year. And he's going to a team that'll feed him the rock. And Mike, you brought it up before, Michael Crabtree. He's had a great year under Derek Carr. I think Antonio Brown's the pick.
Yeah, it's a great question because it's both timely and it involves 2 of our overreaction guys.
And it will go back and forth
and
depending
so
on your draft.
we
I don't
will-
think there's a definitive answer.
We will talk a little bit deeper as to our rationale why as the episode goes on. I am a fan of Antonio Brown on the Raiders, and I am still taking JuJu, and we'll talk about that later. Andy is going to try to dissuade me, I believe, from overreacting on JuJu. I get the argument that he has never been the one, that he has gotten the softer coverage, that he has played in the slot, and all of those things. But I did this last year with JuJu, where I watched the talent, how much I loved him, and I was, but the metrics didn't support it. And so I didn't make him my guy, even though I was so, he really was, in my heart, just one of my absolute guys that kind of my brand.
Right.
And I'm not doing it again this year. His opportunity is going to come, and he's as talented as any wide receiver in the league. So if he's now the one, he'll beat whatever coverage roles. I believe.
Who are you taking, Antonio Brown, or are you taking?
JuJu.
Okay. All right, you can pre-order the 2019 Ultimate Draft Kit at ultimatedraftkit.com. Make sure you check that out. We're also giving away a signed Michael Thomas jersey at footclangiveaway.com. Let's talk news.
News and notes from around the league, presented by Sleeper.
I want to preface this by saying, look, this is not an exhaustive list. In fact, by the time you listen to this show, there will probably be a handful of other players that have signed, a lot of rumors. Maybe we'll have information about Le'Veon Bell. And as of right now, we don't. And we'll talk exhaustively about every significant signing on Thursday, the ones we don't cover today. But let's start here with Case Keenum, traded to the Redskins for basically nothing. The Broncos are going to move forward with Joe Flacco. Case Keenum, he'll compete with Colt McCoy for that starting job. You imagine that the Redskins will add a rookie, and we'll see who can rise to the top of that team. They just signed Landon Collins on the defensive side of the football. Any thoughts about Case Keenum? Is he going to end up the starter? I mean, there are dynasty leagues. There are 2 quarterback leagues where you need to identify who's the starter there.
So they swapped, 6th and 7th round picks next year. And on top of that, Washington only has to pay, I think, half of his salary. It's going to really suck for Case Keenum when he gets beat out by Colt McCoy.
It could happen.
That's what I think.
It could happen. I'm not saying that's not in the realm of possibility, but I think Case Keenum ends up the starter for 16 games with Washington.
16 games.
Yes. I think he plays the whole season.
Wouldn't be an offseason without
Jason Moore loving Case Keenum.
Chiefs have signed Carlos Hyde to a 1-year, $2.8 million contract. He'll actually be a bigger cap hit than Damian Williams, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, it's difficult to ascertain. My initial reaction, and Mike, you're a Damian Williams owner.
Yep.
There's been so much talk about Damian Williams. He's a perfect candidate for an overreaction episode as well. But my first reaction was this is best case scenario for Damian Williams, right? Carlos Hyde,
yep.
He's kind of beyond his prime and hasn't made a big impact, doesn't catch the ball well. Carlos Hyde coming in, not a big deal. That being said, we have seen a very interesting progression over the last few years where I don't think that this necessarily removes Kansas City from looking at a running back in the draft as well. We saw Jerick McKinnon was going to be the guy, and then it was like, okay, well, add Latavius Murray. Oh, wait, now we also drafted Dalvin Cook. That happened a couple of years ago. Jerick McKinnon, the perfect comp for the Damian Williams situation, looks like he's going to be the guy. Carlos Hyde could also theoretically take away some of the goal line work from Damian Williams. I'd still rather have the pass catching back in Kansas City. I never thought Damian Williams was a 1. I have him around probably RB 15 through 18.
I still think that Damian Williams I think he's secured as a 1 now. I don't disagree that they'll draft
a fantasy 1.
Yes, I think he'll be.
Wow.
I think he will be a running back 1 now because I firmly believe it's his job. Carlos Hyde to me is about as good as, maybe a little bit better than Spencer Ware, and at this point in his career, and we've seen the long-term history of Andy Reid. Andy Reid, yes, Carlos Hyde will touch the ball. He'll get on the field. I'm not saying that Damian Williams is getting 90% of the touches. But Andy Reid prefers to use one guy predominantly. So you're talking that 65% range, which is fantastic in today's NFL for a running back timeshare. Add on top of that, he'll be in either the first or second highest scoring offense in the NFL with Patrick Mahomes. I think Damian Williams is locked in as a running back 1.
Wow. Wow, that's profound. Jason, where are you at?
I agree with parts of what both of you are saying. It's best realistic case for Damian Williams, right? Because best case would have been they don't bring anybody in, and that's impossible.
Yeah.
They were going to bring people in. Bringing in a 29-year-old Carlos Hyde is great because he's good enough to keep them from putting a lot of capital. If they went after a day 2 running back, I'd be surprised now. I wouldn't have been earlier. But he's not good enough to just supplant. And all of a sudden in camp, it's going to be like, oh, dude, it's have you seen this Carlos Hyde guy? So Damian Williams, I think, is the lead back, but I don't see him as a top 12. I'm with Andy that, 15 to 17, that range, and Carlos Hyde becomes an important late season.
There's a lot of
type.
At a minimum. I think there's a lot of risk to Damian Williams. I think if you're picking, let's say you did have him in that top 12 range, I don't see anybody riskier than Damian Williams in that group.
I won't necessarily disagree with that, but with that risk comes,
great responsibility.
Yes, comes great responsibility, but comes top 5 upside. The running back for Andy Reid is always incredibly valuable.
Frank Gore has a job.
No, he doesn't.
1
Yes!
year.
What?
One
Yes!
year, $2 million contract with the Buffalo Bills. Just announced.
Yes!
He is eternal.
What?
Yes, Frank!
He is all.
Wow.
He is Frank Gore.
So their 2 running backs as of right now are a combined 65 years old between Shady McCoy and Frank Gore? How is that possible?
Wow.
Yes!
1 year deal for Frank Gore.
Do you think
great stuff.
Do you think this could open the door for them to release?
Yeah,
Shady?
Shady has always been a
No.
release candidate for me.
I don't think this opens the door.
It's already been open.
Well, we've got Gore.
I was going to say,
so
nobody
we're kind of on lockdown here.
Nobody says, hey, I got picked up Frank Gore. We're good to go.
Hey, I'm just happy. Look, another feather in the cap for Dynasty because he's on my Dynasty team. I'm excited.
Sure.
He's not.
He's got a job.
He's not retired.
Danny Amendola, 1 year, $4.5 million contract. Jesse James as well to the Lions. Danny Amendola, best case scenario for him. They need a slot receiver. There are slot receivers running all over the free agent market. Adam Humphries, Jamison Crowder, who, by the way, just signed with the Jets. It's going to be interesting to see what Amendola can do. The name's escaping me, but who stepped in for
Bruce Ellington.
Bruce Ellington stepped in for a brief period of time.
Getting targets galore.
Was highly targeted in Detroit. DeSean Jackson, as of this moment of this recording, he has posted that he is done with the Bucs on Instagram. I believe he said, thanks for the time, Tampa. It didn't work out. That's what he said.
It did not.
Which we agree.
Yeah.
It worked out when he had Fitzpatrick.
Fair.
Yeah, so now you're looking at a Tampa offense. And I want to get your reaction, Mike, because I think heading into the offseason, we're looking at this situation with Bruce Arians and Jameis Winston and the capability of that offense, the vertical passing game. But if you just remove Adam Humphries, who did have a big role, and you remove DeSean Jackson, and you start to look at it fresh, with fresh eyes, no draft yet, and you say, hey, it's Mike Evans, and it's Chris Godwin, and it's O.J. Howard, is some of the shine off of that situation at all to you?
No, not as the offense as a whole?
Correct. Losing both of those pieces?
Yeah, I can understand that maybe as a whole, but you get so incredibly excited for the potential of Chris Godwin. I mean, Mike Evans is a stud. We haven't done our full rankings yet. We're still working through them. I can't imagine Mike Evans not being in the top 12. And Chris Godwin has massive upside. He already had his little mini breakout this past season. He's a fantastic route runner, always getting open. He's got great hands. And he has the perfect coach to utilize his skill set.
He is a must-trade for target. I've been trying to get him the last couple days with the idea that those 2 wide receivers could be gone. He hasn't broken.
Price just went up.
Yeah, he hasn't broken out yet. But I mean, go in whatever league you're in and try to get Godwin because he's going to be an every week starter. He's going to be that caliber of a player next year. You can get him now.
According to Mike Rodak, the oldest NFL running backs under contract for 2019, number 1, Frank Gore, 35 years old, Buffalo. Number 2, Chris Ivory, 30 years old, Buffalo. Number 3, LaShawn McCoy, 30 years old,
I forgot Ivory was that
Buffalo.
old.
They're almost 100.
Hey, they got 100 years of experience, Jason.
100-year bill.
Wow.
That is almost 100 years of running back experience.
And if I've learned anything about today's NFL, you need 30-year-old running backs.
Yeah, that's what we've learned.
That's the plan for success.
C.J. Uzomah, 3-year, $18 million contract to return to the Bengals. Alan Hearns, the Cowboys exercised his option. He's back next year. And then Jamison Crowder. How many times this offseason are we going to hear the new Jarvis Landry for Adam Gase comparison when it comes to
Oh, my goodness.
Jamison Crowder and what he's going to do in the slot in New York.
I'd put the over-under at 2 per day.
2 per day.
2 per day.
A twoper?
Twoper, as
A
we
twoper,
call them.
In the biz, that's what they call it, a twoper.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot. But Jamison Crowder to the Jets means Quincy Enunwa he's going to be moving outside.
Or, I mean, one of those two will probably go outside. You could question whether they think, okay, Crowder can.
Oh, Crowder won't go outside. 0% chance.
So you think
Let
Enunwa.
me ask
Enunwa's
you this.
played outside before, and he's fine.
Andy, how does this make you feel, good, bad, neutral, about having Robbie Anderson on your dynasty team?
Good.
You like it?
I just want the offense to be better.
Okay.
I want Adam Gase equipped to, Quincy Enunwa is 6'2". He's a 225 wide receiver. He can play out there, and they want to use him more. And I look, anything that gives you the opportunity to single up Robbie Anderson. We'll see if Lev Bell lands in New York. We'll see what other weapons they have.
Do we have numbers on the potential Crowder contract yet?
I haven't
not
seen
that I know of.
It's definitely interesting since they just locked up Quincy, and if you're giving Jamison Crowder, if they've already announced that he's coming to the team this early on in the process, you have to imagine it's a good contract.
Yeah, I would think it is. I mean, look.
What does that say for Anderson's long-term status with the New York Jets? Can you invest 3 high-level contracts at the wide receiver?
No, you can't. But I don't feel like they have
He's
any
there.
high-level contracts.
Robbie's
so
there
far.
this year. Well, what's Quincy? Oh, look, Quincy's there.
There's a lot of money right now available. A lot of teams have cap space. There aren't a lot of talented players out there and available. Quincy Enunwa, they want to.
I guess it was only a 4-year 36 for Quincy.
Yeah, I was going to say they're not huge deals. And, Crowder will come inside. He's 5'9", 170. He'll play the slot. He can play it well if he stays healthy. The honest truth is you've got injury concerns. Enunwa and Crowder both have been banged up.
It looks like the Jets are giving Crowder a 3-year, $28.5 million deal.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to see that throughout. I think in 3 days we may not feel like it's that special is all I'm saying.
I'm just talking
money's being
in context with having to re-sign Robbie and all the smoke screen of will Le'Veon Bell come and eat 50% of their cap.
Num.
Yeah. That's how I would eat it too.
Here's the deal. By the way, switch your dynasty league to Sleeper.
Yeah.
Download the Sleeper app. It's free. Check it out. You get all the news reports. And before we move into overreactions, the main part of the show, I do want to remind you about Hulu. Okay, here's the thing. Let's say you go to a courtside game. There's pros and cons, right? You go to a courtside game. I did this years ago, paid up for some tickets to see a playoff game. The pro is the best way to watch a game. We did this earlier in the preseason. We saw a courtside game. The bad thing, you don't ever want to watch sports.
It's true.
Any other way.
Especially basketball.
It's too good. It's too nice. That's that's what Hulu's all about. Once you try it, you can't go back. They ruin TV for you. That is the gist of what Hulu is. And once you get it, it's ruined forever. And forever is about how long it'll take for the Knicks to win another title.
What? What?
Just saying.
Just slamming the Knicks
Just
right in the
slamming
middle?
the Knicks. Tons of shows,
Take that, New York.
movies, originals, live TV. Start your free trial today. It's simple. Hulu.com, HULU.com. That's all right.
I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do, which is just flip out.
How you
You
doing,
flipping
Jay?
out over there, Jay? What's going
Yeah,
on?
you had a look on your face.
I'm doing great. I mean, I just connected the dots between that great drop and our show intro.
Yeah. You
So-
talk about Tommy C, my
Yeah.
buddy?
Yeah. Tommy C.
All right, overreaction time, guys. Let's go ahead and start with the two players that we talked about at the beginning of the show, Antonio Brown, Oakland Raider, JuJu Smith-Schuster. When I posted real quick, 10 minutes before the show, I just threw the who's your biggest overreaction candidates onto Twitter, let the Foot Clan reply. JuJu's name came up, okay, because you're getting a lot of it. And JuJu's not doing anything to stop your hype because he's out there.
Because he's the best, man.
He's out there tweeting about, hey, I'm going to give you big numbers. I'm ready. Let's go. And here's
JuJu is a player for this generation.
he is. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. Hashtag. He's a hashtag player.
He is.
He's a hashtag player. Here's the thing. Juju had kind of a year last year, if you didn't know. 111 receptions. 1,426 yards. Maybe you don't realize that about Juju's season. 7 touchdowns. Was a number 9 fantasy wide receiver. I don't think Juju's going to – the overreaction concerns that I have would be ones that put JuJu Smith-Schuster in the top 5 of all fantasy players. And I've seen this. And a lot of people think he's a top 5 wide receiver for next season. I disagree. I think that is an overreaction. I think that is an attempt to imbue the absence of the Antonio Brown targets, and JuJu Smith-Schuster will be able to run wild and do anything he wanted to do. My problem with that contention is that it is very, very hard, no matter how good you are, no matter how much of a star you are, Jason, is that to repeat 1,400-plus yards receiving doesn't happen if your name's not Julio Jones over the last handful of years. Nobody's done it other than Julio Jones over the last 5 years. Everybody else that's had these banner years, T.Y. Hilton, even Antonio Brown, the repeat of those seasons is very difficult. You also played a season in which Juju was in the slot, never faced double coverage. 0.8% of the routes he ran were double coverage. Antonio Brown faced that 9% of the time, and you don't have any proven commodity in James Washington right now. You don't. You don't have you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offense and that team. They are a worse football team today than they were before they traded Antonio Brown. You've got issues with age and Big Ben and other things that have come to a head. You're losing Lev Bell and Antonio Brown, and now it's, can Juju throw up 115 and 1,510? Yeah, he can, but I'm not projecting that. That's kind of where I'm at with him. I think it's an overreaction to just assume that he's going to be able to move outside and do that. He's going to face completely different coverages we've never seen him face before. And I'm not a big fan of the argument that is like, I think you started the show by saying it, where you're like, well, he's never been a one before. I don't really like taking the perspective of like, he's never done X, so he can't do X. But at the end of the day, you're going to have variables that are in the equation. And I think it's too hard to just say, hey, let's throw him outside. Now he's got double coverage. Now he's running different routes. He's a guaranteed 1,500 yards. I don't think he repeats what he did last year, fantasy-wise. That's my point.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of takes that are similar to yours in the sense that they're saying, hey, hold your horses here. You can't just say, okay, well, he becomes Antonio Brown. And I agree with that extreme, right? That would essentially be saying, well, Juju's the number 1 wide receiver off the board. He's going to be the new Antonio Brown. They're very different players, different stylistically, different, across the board. But Juju is, to me, one of the most dominant wide receivers in the league, who is at an age where he is only getting better, and now the opportunities for targets and volume and all of that, goes way up. I mean, you're losing 168 targets and 15 touchdowns from Antonio Brown. Juju is a great red zone option, and he only had 7 touchdowns. So if you're telling me, okay, maybe he doesn't repeat 1,400 yards, maybe he gets 1,290,
right?
But he has 12 or 13 touchdowns, he's going to be around that top 5. So I haven't statted, we
had 166 targets. So when you say his targets and all these things are going to go way up, if you had just made it about the red zone, I can get on board with you. But when you say they're going to go way up, what are we talking about?
Antonio Brown's 16-game pace targets over the last 6 years on average are 180 targets. So, I mean, maybe I'm not saying he's going to add on an extra 100 targets, but they're not going down, and he's going to be utilized more in the red zone. There was this weird home-road split. I just think, I mean, look, I need to be listening to you, right? Like, if you're correct,
That's what I've been saying for years.
You are, I'm going to draft Juju as an absolute 1 this year, so I'm the audience you're speaking to right now.
Look, he can be a 1. I think when you look at what he did last year, you're talking about close to a ceiling for him. I mean, the big number that can change is the touchdown total. I don't disagree with that.
It would be a big difference if he added 4 on there.
If he came down on yards and went up on that, then you're back at the 8-9 range. That's fine. I'm seeing him. People want to put him in the top 3, top 5. That's where the overreaction to me is.
All I hear are numbers that speak positively for Vance McDonald.
So, well, speaking of Pittsburgh Steelers, former Pittsburgh Steeler Antonio Brown is my watch your overreactions on. You
guys remember when Nick Foles decided to pay back that $2 million?
20.
Yeah, he paid $2 million.
He paid the 2 to turn down the 20.
Turn down the $20 million. Remember when he did that?
How do you not hit the button for this?
Yeah.
Breaking news.
Nick Foles is officially signing with the Jags 4 years, $88 million.
And
88 miles an hour.
That's why. Do we know how much is guaranteed? Probably at least 60 or something close. That's
I do not know that as of this moment.
I don't blame them.
I know that any way you cut up $88 million is a pretty good situation.
I do not blame them.
Oh, guaranteed money is $50 million.
All right. Okay.
I would have gone in on
55!
I think he made a mistake.
I don't blame him, but it seemed like there was no one else that Nick Foles could go to.
And they're going to release Blake Bortles.
No!
Very soon. So
my dynasty team cries. All right, so my overreaction candidate number one is Antonio Brown. People overreacting on the negative. Okay, he goes from being the best wide receiver in the game to Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Derek Carr has been really bad for fantasy. I mean, I know some of his numbers look like they got better, but that's because he was checked down Charlie this last year. Everything basically at the line of scrimmage. But if you think about it, 2 years ago, Derek Carr was an MVP candidate who had 145 targets for Michael Crabtree and 132 for Amari Cooper in the same season, and both those guys had good fantasy years. You had, I think 15 touchdowns between them. So now, I know Carr was really, really bad last year. I will agree with everybody that's like, oh, man, Derek Carr is no Big Ben.
He's not.
Agreed. He is not as good as Big Ben for sure. But last year, you can't just look. I mean, he was throwing the ball to a 33-year-old Jordy Nelson, Seth Roberts, and Marcel Aitman. And, I mean, it was just a trash heap. His best receiver last year was Jared Cook. I mean, in the offseason last year, when I had Jared Cook, I think in the top 12 tight ends, I was mocked.
Yes.
Because he's Jared Cook. But, I mean, Jared Cook had 900 yards, 6 touchdowns, and he's Jared Cook. So now you've got Antonio Brown.
The biggest thing Jared Cook has working against him is that he's Jared Cook.
Exactly. Now you see the point. Antonio Brown is not the same as Amari Cooper. They aren't just both good, promising wide receivers. Antonio Brown is the best wide receiver in the game right now. He is arguably the second best wide receiver of all time. And he's going to a team where I think he's going to have Derek Carr under his little finger, and he's going to get the 160 targets. And Derek Carr is going to be Antonio Brown's puppet, and he's going to say, just throw me the ball. And when he does, he's going to go, oh, this guy catches it a lot more than Amari Cooper did.
Can Antonio Brown overcome Greg Olson?
Oh, that's going to be tough. But if there's one thing I'm pretty sure of is that Antonio Brown, how they say, runs the show. He has just orchestrated everything he wanted, got everything he wanted, and he's not going to go to Oakland and then not get everything else he wants. So, look, he's going to be down, right? But I've seen his average draft position on money leagues, on best ball games going right now is the 25th pick. That's the third round. He's going basically –
I would take him there gladly.
Yes, I would as well. I statted out Derek Carr. And,
is that the Buffalo bump, though? Like when people got scared that he was going to Buffalo?
Maybe. I think he is the wide receiver 10 on ADP right now. And look, I've got him statted for 165 targets, 107 receptions, 1,287 yards, and 9 touchdowns. I believe that's very doable next year for him. That would have put him 9th last year. But last year was an up year for wide receivers. It would have put him 3rd 2 years ago. So I still see him locked and loaded as a wide receiver 1. This is a great landing spot for Antonio Brown. I think the very few places that would have been better for Antonio Brown to go.
I don't think that a lot of people, their first impression of the landing spot is that it's a great landing spot. You know, if he had landed in San Francisco,
right?
I think people could have, up-and-coming quarterback, Kyle Shanahan. I think it's not Buffalo, right, the reaction that you got from Buffalo, but it's close, right? It's kind of the inherent reaction you have when a team has struggled for a while.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. This is not a player moving on to Oakland in the back quarter of his career. This is a player that just led the league in touchdowns. The problem will be, can Derek Carr drive the ball downfield? Even when they were winning, that was a bit of an issue. So if Derek Carr can't drive it downfield, it doesn't matter. But I'm with you. A lot of people, look, some of the reactions I got on that tweet right now, Antonio Brown out of the top 10. Antonio Brown out of the top 10.
Wow.
With exclamation points. So I'm not sure that I think you'd cut those exclamation points off and maybe throw a question mark at the end.
Yep.
Sure. The player I want to bring up for my first overreaction is Devonta Freeman. I think that people are writing him off too early. I completely understand that he has been a disappointment the past 2 years, battling with injuries, and he's been also battling my top problem with Freeman the past couple years, targets. The targets were not coming to one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. Like when he was under Kyle Shanahan, when K-Shy was running the show in Atlanta, Devonta Freeman was feasting on targets, was the overall number one running back a year, and then Sarkisian comes in, and everything seems like it's absolutely terrible. And it wasn't just your imagination. In 2017, under Sark, they averaged around 18% of their targets went to the running back position, and that's not a death sentence. That's certainly not where you want them. And then next year, 2018, around 14%. What are you doing, Steve Sarkisian? I understand that Freeman wasn't playing, but you had Tevin Coleman, very capable pass catcher. Ito Smith is fine. But what were you doing with the offense? Sark is out. We don't have to live under his tyranny anymore. Dirk Cutter is back. And we already have a sample. We know what Dirk Cutter does in Atlanta, and that was the running backs averaged, in Dirk Cutter's 3 years, they averaged 22% of the targets. This is exactly what we need to get Devonta Freeman back into the top, back being a stud.
It's rare to have predictability when you have
a new OC?
A new OC.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Yes.
As fantasy owners, we're going to grab on.
And by the way, so one of the years, it was 2012 when they were still getting a high amount of targets. That was also the year that Michael Turner saw 222 attempts. So this isn't that Devonta Freeman, now we're cutting him down to 140 attempts, but he's going to get targets.
That's my question to you is wear and tear has done something to Devonta Freeman.
Sure.
So does the team, with the talk of Ito Smith, do they draft somebody, and would that change your opinion if they spend a day 2 pick on somebody in that for that backfield?
I would be shocked if they spent a day 2 pick on a running back. It certainly would have to affect the way I think about things, but we always talk about new information changes the way you see things. But right now, people on draft, they're playing best ball, and Devonta Freeman's going right around pick 31. That's behind Aaron Jones. That's behind Kerryon Johnson. And sure, we can have a debate, like will those guys finish ahead of Freeman, but it's absolutely outrageous to me that a guy who's just a couple years removed from being an absolute dominant force in fantasy football is being drafted there. Like he's being written off.
You probably know this off the top of your head, but just in case you don't, you know how old Devonta Freeman is?
I think he's 27.
He is 27.
He's 26 years old.
He will be 27 this season?
Well, that'll come after 26.
No, I'm because I know he is younger than Le'Veon Bell. And I remember that surprised me when I was looking that up, because in Dynasty, Devonta Freeman, like you're saying, Mike, is pretty much left for dead, and Le'Veon Bell is still.
And I get it. And like I just traded for Freeman, and the reason I was able to get Freeman was because of the past 2 years.
Well, that's your opportunity.
Yes,
as a fantasy
exactly.
owner. And if you had the last 2 years and he was 30 years old, I mean,
that'd be a lot different.
Compare it to like LaShawn McCoy. You don't hear us talking a lot about him being a bargain or a steal.
Right.
because there's a lot of tread on those tires. At least Devonta Freeman can be put in a position where maybe you've had some bad fortune. Tevin Coleman's cleared the way. Even if he was in a timeshare role and an offense that was very good, that's enough.
Yeah, and the Falcons will once again be a very, very good offense. And you're hurt until you're not.
Yes. I just asked Matt Forte.
Yes.
All right. This was one I struggled with. I spent a lot of time thinking about it. I'm sticking with it. I think people are overreacting, and I think Mike is one of those people.
No. Well, let me hear your let's hear your argument.
Well, here's the deal. I think that Adam Thielen, okay? I think Adam Thielen, a lot of people are overreacting, and they don't view him as a 1, or they view him behind Stephon Diggs, and they do it based on the fact that the season ended so poorly for Adam Thielen. Last year when he came out, first half of the season, 78 receptions, 940 yards, and 6 touchdowns, the number 1 wideout in fantasy, and the contention, the predominant argument, the main storyline for his decline has revolved around what? A transition in philosophy on the offensive side of the football, okay? So that's the main argument. Do you guys agree with that?
100%. I think that's the main argument. They changed the offensive coordinator. Now they're going to run more, pass less.
Yeah, and that it was evident that did take place. I mean, when you look at the back half of the season, last 3 games of the year, they were passing on 52% of plays. Over the course of the whole year, they were 64%.
Yeah,
of
they
the
were
time
very
passing
pass
team.
happy to start.
But here's the overreaction. Here's the pendulum swing that I'm afraid of people making. And by the way, Adam Thielen in negotiations right now for a contract extension. He's still his 4-year, $19 million deal is one of the best bargains in all of football. And last season, 113 for 1373 and 9. One of the best route runners in football. Here's the deal. We're one offseason removed from $84 million guaranteed into the hands of Kirk Cousins. I think what the coach wants to do and hopes to do doesn't necessarily match reality in today's NFL. And we can push the pendulum too far and believe this team's going to run. Well, guess what? This defense wasn't what they thought they had last year. Every single defender on their team outside of Sheldon Richardson graded out lower than the season before. This defense has question marks and problems. You can want to do that, but when Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay have a 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown lead, and you've got 2 of the best route-running receivers in football, you're going to use them with a guy that's paid $84 million. So I think the truth of Adam Thielen is much, from a statistical standpoint, is much more the first half than the second half of the year. I don't think we expect that. I don't think you see the last 8 games repeated over the course of all next season. I don't think you see the first 8 games. But I think the overreaction has been staunch. It's been big. People were burned by him. People have scars from the playoff run. When Adam Thielen, I mean, if you get 8 games like you got to start the year from Adam Thielen,
he's number 1.
He's auto-locked in your lineup, though, for the second half of the year. You never take him out. And then when he lets you down, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you read the number of his final yardage count, 1,373 yards, which that's a fantastic season. The hard part is that second half, so games 9 through 16, 448 total receiving yards.
I get it.
And to me, it's more a question of that's not a philosophy change. I mean, you can't turn in that first half and then the second half. What happened?
Well, and that's my point. The
I don't have an answer
part of
for
the
that.
answer. The real answer isn't just the running game. The real answer is the offensive line. The real answer is no time for Kirk Cousins. And these guys are getting double and triple team because you don't need to send extra pass rushers on that offense. They released 2 of their guards today. They're reformulating that offensive line. If they can fix the offensive line, you're going to fix Adam Thielen's issues. It doesn't just come down to philosophy. It comes down to the fact that their head coach was frustrated because you couldn't put him back to pass because their offensive line struggled.
The stat you just brought up of the 400 and yada yards over the second half, that is perfect ammunition for those people who want to overreact. I'm 100% on board with Andy. Adam Thielen is just a dominant wide receiver in his prime. So I'm gonna trust that he's great because he's been great and will continue to be great. I'm on board completely, not gonna overreact. In fact, I will scoop up whatever dip in his average draft position.
You've been always scoop the dip. I mean, that's
buy the dip. Huddle.
I'll eat. Nom, nom, nom. All right, my next overreaction candidate is last year's overreaction candidate. Last year on this show, I told people not to overreact from Carson Wentz's
Breaking news.
It's every time Jason
I was
talks.
gonna say, when Jason speaks, something happens to DeSean Jackson to the Eagles.
Yeah.
Oh, what's happening?
Well, speaking of Carson Wentz.
That took all of 5 seconds for him to be released and to head to the Eagles. Sorry. Implications, one-sentence implications. We'll talk more on Thursday. DeSean Jackson to the Eagles means
bye-bye Aguilar. Hello, Carson Wentz.
nice.
I won't disagree with that.
I think Aguilar sticks around, by the way.
He might, but he'll be DeSean Jackson will be what they wanted Mike Wallace to be.
My dynasty team's so happy.
See, it feels so good, man.
I was just saying at lunch today. Just at lunch today, I was like, dude, I need to, like, we're always tapped out on the amount of leagues we're in. We try to stay in a small, and I'm like, I need to find another dynasty league.
You just
I
want the
one
startup.
more. I want a startup.
All right, go on. You're talking Carson Wentz, huh?
Carson Wentz. Last year, it was he's right here. Carson Wentz is with us
that's not
on
him.
set.
That's a little doll.
Well,
That's not actually. It's miniature.
but he's with me in spirit.
Okay.
So last year, urged people not to overreact on his incredible sophomore year where he threw over 7% of his passes as touchdowns. And, and he had a down year this year. And I'm telling people, do not overreact. He had a down year in the worst possible way to have a down year. If you have a down year and it's because you slumped in the middle of the season, you're going to be fine. People aren't going to overreact. They're going to remember the beginning. They're going to remember the end. That's what people remember. But if you remember the beginning of the season and you remember the end of the season, you don't remember Carson Wentz. You remember Nick Foles. He didn't start the year. He didn't finish the year. He's got the back problems. He was down. I mean, if you look at final season rankings, Carson Wentz was terrible. But in reality, Carson Wentz was pretty darn good. I mean, right now in the best ball ADPs that I checked, he's going as the quarterback 13 or 15, depending on the platform you're in. And I'm all about that life. He was still a 5.2% touchdown rate this last year on that's great. It's and
5.2 is manageable.
5.2, exactly. 5.2 is a great number that maybe is his number.
Right.
When he threw, 7.4% or something, we all knew it can't stick around there, but he is a good touchdown thrower. He's an efficient, Tony Romo, Aaron Rodgers type of guy that when he gets around the red zone, he throws touchdowns. Look, we need to remember 2 years ago when I was telling people to not overreact from, he was the quarterback 3 in points per game, and that was his sophomore year. He dealt with some stuff. Now getting DeSean Jackson, making sure that Peters is re-signed for the left tackle. He's coming back this year. I think people are going to overreact from Carson Wentz's injuries and the overall feeling that he's nothing special.
The biggest problem with Carson Wentz, if you want me to, and you're echoing all of my thoughts on Carson Wentz. I love him, but the biggest issue is on the ground.
Right, is running.
Because all of your statistics that you brought up about him actually being pretty darn good. I mean, great touchdown to interception ratio, all those things. The completion percentage was outstanding. It's just he picked up so many yards on the ground. That was the extra element that made him an elite top 3 guy.
And that is one of those reasons last year when we're saying to not overreact is this past year, he was coming off of an ACL. You're not going to run that following year as much as you will now. So I think he keeps running on the ground. And
that's the best place to run.
And is a dominant quarterback this next year. I think he's a top 6 fantasy option.
All right, guys, what do you think? DeSean Jackson over under 6.5 touchdowns in Philadelphia this year. What do you think?
6.5 is a pretty good line. I'll take the under.
I'm going to go over.
52-48 is the current poll results on my Twitter. 250 Foot Clan members voted moments ago. 52% say under, 48% say over. That must be right about where people are expecting him to land. All right, Mike, who's your next overreaction candidate?
He was a bit of an overreaction candidate last year because the hype train
You're talking about Brooks.
I get it.
I get it.
Brooks. Brooks is always getting the hype. No, it's interesting. I went from Devonta Freeman, who saw his best years under Kyle Shanahan, to a running back who's currently playing for Kyle Shanahan. Want to remind people about, we're talking Jerick McKinnon. It's happening.
I need to hear this because I don't know what to think, man. I really don't. Because the hype train was, like you said, it was crazy. I don't know what to think. I need someone to clarify the truth.
I love McKinnon. He's such a buy candidate for me right now.
Yes, I am thoroughly in love with McKinnon.
Can we be wrong, though? Could you be wrong?
Well, here's the deal. So last year, Matt Breida was the running back 25 to end the season. If you look at the numbers, like games played, I thought he was actually better than that. It's because he technically appeared in 14 games. He really only played 10 of those games where he would knocked out, you're talking 10% of the snaps because he got knocked out frequently. That was what Matt Breida kind of did. And in those games where he was playing, he would get 13 attempts and 3 targets a game. And he turned that into the running back 25 in 10 games. Look at the yards per attempt for the entire backfield for San Francisco running under the Shanahan system. Breida, 5.3 a carry. My name is Jeff Wilson, 4.0. Raheem Mostert, Colonel Mustard with a 7.7. Even the carcass of Alfred Morris was able to manage 3.9. I mean, that's a win to me, honestly.
When your carcass can average 3.9.
Look, and
some carcasses get signed to $2 million deals with Buffalo. But go on.
Sure. And is Jerick McKinnon still the guy? Because he got paid a crazy amount of money last year. Kyle Shanahan was just talking to a member of SB Nation on February 28th. They said, is McKinnon the lead guy? Kyle Shanahan, quote, yeah, that's why we brought him here. So Kyle Shanahan still has the support for Jerick McKinnon. Right now, if you're playing best ball in draft, he's going at pick 45. These are great values to me, Devonta Freeman and Jerick McKinnon. I firmly believe that McKinnon takes over that lead role over Breida, over whoever it happens to be left on the roster.
Breaking news: Le'Veon Bell just signed with San Francisco.
That would put a little bit of a damper on it, but those rumors are absolutely insane.
It sounds like agent leak type of rumors where it's like, hey, say that San Francisco has interest because we need the Jets to pay more.
This is when he finds out that the only people bidding on Lev Bell are the Jets, and they're trying to start that war.
Here's what I want to know. What's the difference in how you feel about Jerick McKinnon today versus a year ago?
The same.
Yeah, I don't feel any different.
You don't. The question to me is,
coming off an ACL tear, of course, you have to have a little bit of caution. Yes,
and we've seen Matt Breida and Mostert, who is tendered.
Yes.
So the only variables to me are the injury and then seeing a little bit more of those other guys in their success. Now, you're kind of making the argument that the success of Matt Breida works in advantage for Jerick McKinnon's production.
That's how I've seen it too. The ACL is a step down, but what those backups were able to do says, I think McKinnon is a better back than those other guys. So if he's in there and those other guys were dominating, he's going to be a great fantasy
asset. So you're
asset.
targeting, you guys, the overreaction would be that you're the concern.
Yes, the concern for McKinnon.
Like I said,
whenever
pick
you
45. You're almost the back of the 4th round. A guy who has, in my opinion, easy top 12 upside at the position.
All right. Well, listen, I want to talk to the listeners for just a minute because we've got we're wrapping up today's episode, but there's a lot more coming, and I mean signings in NFL free agency. We got a show on Thursday. We're going to be covering everything that we didn't get to talk about on today's show. We also have a second show on Thursdays, in case you didn't know that. But it's called The Footcast, and it is for exclusive Foot Clan supporters. Those of you supporting our independent podcast at jointhefoot.com, you get access to an exclusive extra episode. You can ask questions about any of these free agents, your team, your dynasty team. You can gloat about Danny Amendola on The Footcast if you want to. But check it out at jointhefoot.com. We encourage you to head over there, support the year-round fantasy football show. One more little thing to get to.
Pristine deal of the day.
Well, Deshaun Watson had another solid fantasy year, and you can pick up a jersey at pristineauction.com. Deshaun Watson signed Texans jersey yesterday. It sold for $87. That is a pretty good deal.
Not bad.
We got JuJu up on the wall today. Check it all out at pristineauction.com. That's PRISTINE auction.com for hundreds of daily sports memorabilia auctions. Guys, I don't know if we can get through the outro without another piece of breaking news. Do you think we can
as long as we don't let Jason speak.
Yeah, it's working out okay. We'll talk to you
next
Thursday.
time. Hey, goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.